What's up, basketball fans? Welcome to the Rats Report. It is time to talk about the Toronto Raptors and two players they can take in this year's draft class. Two wing players. I'm really excited to talk about these two players in particular for today's video. So if you're ready to watch, make sure to hit the subscribe button. And with that being said, let's get into today's video. Now, as you guys know, I do like to give out shout outs on my channel, and the shout out for today's video goes out to Mischief Bass Music. So thank you so much for supporting this channel through your likes and comments. It is very much appreciated. Now let's talk about our first player here, and this is no other than Cedric Coward. Now taking a look at his measurements, he came in at barefoot 6 foot 5 inches, 213 pounds, measured in at 7 foot 2 inches. Has a wingspan of 7 foot 2 inches, has a standing reach of 8 foot 10 inches, and is 21 years old. Now, in terms of the draft combine shooting, he made 17 of 25, 68% shots in 3-point star shooting drill. Again, similar to what the NBA players do at the 3-point shooting contest at the All-Star game. Made 18 of 25 for 72% shots in spot up. Made 9 of 10 free throws, which is great. And also, very important, made 23 of 30 shots, which was good for 76.6% shots in off dribbling shooting. Now, Cedric Coward is a name that obviously I heard of after the draft combine. He did really well, apparently, in interviews as well. It's very important to look at someone like Cedric Coward and kind of write him off because of his age. He's 21 years old. You know, he only played 6 games in college and he had an injury and he was shut down for the rest of the season. He does actually have an offer, I believe, from Duke, $3 million to return to, NCAA basketball. But I believe he should absolutely enter the draft, especially given how well he performed at the draft combine, but also because he is another player that is going to be rising in the draft. And Cedric Howard might be a little bit of a reach for a lot of people at the ninth position. But I do want to say one thing. When you look at previous draft classes and you look at the Raptors and where they're drafted, and you look at players about 4 or 5 spots after where they have drafted, you look at a lot of players and you think to yourself, well, I really wish we would have taken that player. That's going to be a player that a lot of people are going to talk about. A lot of fan bases are going to talk about in terms of Cedric Coward. Now, why do I like Cedric Coward for the Toronto Raptors? First, one simple reason only: he has a potential to be a really good two-way player. His offense is really good. He ranks in the most part 95, 97 percentile in his shooting. He produces 1.16 points per game, or points per possession, excuse me, which is good for about 97 percentile. And if that isn't good enough for you, he also has a great post-up game. And hear this out before you decide that he isn't a player that the Raptors would consider at the ninth spot. He used a lot of his post-ups, for a guy listed at 6'6" with shoes. He has a lot of post-ups, which reminds me of a lot of 2000s basketball. Now, that does not mean that he is not a good three-point shooter. Oftentimes you find with a lot of guys that work in the posters, they do that because their three-point shot isn't great. That isn't the case with Cedric, but his game is very old school and a mix of modern basketball as well. Hear this out before you decide he's not a good player for the Toronto Raptors to draft. He ranks in the 100th percentile. Yes, you heard that correct, in the 100th percentile in his post-up game, producing 1.5 points per possession. That's how unique his ability is to score. I'm going to give you a player comparison here. When I first watched some of his film, I was tempted to say he's a lot like Kawhi, but that's a lazy comparison. I actually think his game is a lot like Anthony Edwards and then some. Of course, this doesn't necessarily mean that he'll be better than Anthony Edwards at the NBA level, but a lot of similarities in his offensive game. When you look at someone like Anthony Edwards and the way he scores in isolation, there are a lot of similarities to Cedric Howard. Now, Anthony Edwards does this very unique move when he's attacking the basket. He'll kind of use his body to dive into his opponents, kind of create a little bit of space with his physicality, and then take a step back jump shot. And that is something I've seen Cedric Howard do a lot of as well. Now, obviously, there was limited film you could watch on this season. I went back and watched last season's film as well, and there's just a lot of similarities, and not much has changed in terms of how he scores in isolation. And that is one of the unique things about Cedric. You think, someone who shoots 2-point shots, jump shots like that, someone who posts up isn't going to be a great 3-point shooter, but that's not the case. He shot close to 40% on 3-point shots. It's just absolutely amazing how unique Cedric Coward is on the offensive side. He has so many unique ways to score. You can honestly say he's a 3-level scorer on the offensive side, but if that isn't enough to sell you on Cedric Coward, let's talk about his defense as well. Now, Cedric Coward has an enormous wingspan of 7 foot 2 inches And one of the things he does really well, obviously, when you have a wingspan that long, is just really reach in and disrupt some of the opposing teams' offensive players. He just really gets in there and knocks the ball loose. Also uses his body really well. Again, he's not someone that blocks a ton of shots. Again, you don't necessarily expect that from guys that are 6'5", 6'6". But he does a really good job of staying with his man, using his hands and really contesting those shots as well, and just really just raises his enormous 7'2" wingspan up to really help him play defense. Now, the one question mark about his defense has been when he's not defending on ball, he sometimes gets lost. But again, that is something that could be worked on. He has all the necessary tools to be a great defensive player at the NBA level. He definitely needs to add on a little bit muscle. I will say that one thing about Cedric is that he needs to get a little bit more stronger. He's a little bit more on the lean side, so just adding another 5-10 pounds of muscle will work wonders for him at the NBA level. And again, for a Toronto Raptors team, you absolutely need a small forward that can play two-way. And Cedric Howard would be an absolute welcome addition to the Raptors. Now, if a lot of fans feel like, it's a little bit high at the ninth position, when you look at this draft class, there's not a lot of 3 and D players. There's a lot of different positions like point guard position. There's also a lot of power forwards, just forwards in general. So it kind of leaves a weird mix of guys that are 3 and D, and a lot of teams will absolutely look for that anytime in any draft class. So it's going to be one of those players that his draft has definitely risen a lot since the draft combine, given how well he did in the shooting, given how well he did in his interviews. But again, it would not shock me if he goes 11, 12, 13, and even if the Raptors take a chance with him at the ninth position as well. So if you do not like him, I would highly suggest watching some of his films because it has truly impressed me how unique of a scorer he is, but also how great he can be at the NBA level. So let's talk about our next player here, who I also really like for the Toronto Raptors. And this is one that a lot of people may feel like is a player that, the Toronto Raptors may not necessarily like at the ninth spot because he is projected to go a little bit later, kind of in the middle first round, if you want to call it, in the late lottery or just outside the lottery. And this is someone that is very unique to the Raptors for several reasons. But let's talk about him really quickly here, and that is Nick Clifford. Now, Nick Clifford measured in at 6'5" barefoot, 202 pounds, has a wingspan of 6'8" so not a huge wingspan like Cedric there, but he does have a standing reach of 8 foot 6.5 inches. He's also 23 years old. Now, taking a very quick look at some of his numbers in the draft combine, shooting, made 11 of 25, 44% shot in 3-point shooting, 3-point star shooting drill, excuse me, made 18 of 25, which was good for 72% shots and spot up, which is really good. Made 9 of 10 free throws for 90%, made 23 of 30 shots, 76.6% shots and off dribbling shooting. Now, his numbers don't really look good in the 3-point star shooting drill, excuse me, but he is a much better shooter than that. Again, he shot the 3-point ball really well. And one of the things I really like about Nick Clifford is his unique way of and ability to score on the offensive side. He is a really good isolation scorer, which in itself is an absolute luxury for a Toronto Raptors team that needs more, shot creators. But the one thing I really like about him, besides the fact that he rebounds the ball exceptionally well for his size, is the fact that he can distribute the ball really well. Oftentimes, when you watch some of his film, when you watch some of his college highlights, you'll see that he gets doubled or he's backed into a corner, and he just wows you with some of his passes because he'll find that 3-point shooter across the court that's standing in the corner. He'll find that big man that just happens to be open for 2 seconds, and he's a very unique passer. Now, Nick Clifford, I think the one thing I will say about him is he's a little bit on the skinny side. On terms of defense, he's never going to be a really great defender. I think he'll be a good defender, just given his size. I do think again, similarly, he needs to add a lot of muscle, but just I feel like that would change how he plays his game on the offensive side as well. He's someone that could get you some steals, really run it in transition. But again, his asset, his main selling point for someone like Nick Clifford is that he is such a good scorer because he'll score in isolation. He's very unique. He hits jump shots. He can shoot off the dribble. He'll attack the basket, finish there. And if that doesn't work, he'll find that open teammate that you don't expect the pass to go to. So very unique player on the offensive side. And the question mark for him, if the Raptors obviously do find a way to draft him, would be where are we going to play him? Are we playing him at the small forward position? Because again, he's a little bit skinny to be playing at the small forward position, but also I think he could do wonders for the Raptors in terms of bench production. He's someone that could be a really good starter on a bad team as a fourth starter or fifth starter, or even if a team like the Orlando Magic and Oklahoma City Thunder draft him, they could be someone that could use him as a six man. For a player for teams like those teams, OKC and Orlando, they obviously want a player that can play right away. They're not looking to draft a player that's going to play in 3 or 4 seasons and be really good. I know age is a huge factor, guys, but one thing I will mention is when you look at last year's draft class, I want to use this player as an example. Dalton Connect. Now, a lot of teams passed on him because of his age, but if you looked at the 5, 6, 7 teams ahead of where he was drafted, and if you did a redraft, a lot of those teams would take him. Now, I know Nick Clifford is projected to go 14th to anywhere from 20th, but a lot of teams are definitely going to love him. Whichever team ends up drafting him is definitely going to love him. But this would be more of a pick if the Toronto Raptors find a way to, get another first round pick, particularly in the lottery. He would be a great pick up there. But again, I really do like Nick Clifford. He is such a unique player, and the way he scores, just I urge you to go watch his highlights. He is such a microwave, but it isn't just that he is a microwave and he's got tunnel vision. He also just gets his teammates involved so well on the offensive side. He creates so many advantages on the offensive side, and I'm not comparing him to a player like Tyrese Halliburton, but when you look at the way that Tyrese plays, he can get his own bucket, but he also does an exceptional job of finding his teammates and just really creating those small advantages of getting them open looks. And that's some of the same things I see in Nick Clifford. Again, they play two different positions, so I'm not comparing Nick to Halliburton, and nor am I suggesting that he is at that level or will be, but he is someone that could find his teammates for, he'll probably average 4 or 5 assists in the NBA when he does find his footing and the right team to be on. So again, I really do like these two players. I know Nick Clifford is probably not someone that most people would like at the ninth position. I don't think he's going that high either, if I'm being honest. This would be more of a scenario if the Raptors traded back and maybe, God, Oklahoma City's 2 first round picks, but I really do like Nick Clifford. And if the Raptors had another first round pick, I'd absolutely love for the Raptors to take him as well. So these are the two players I have highlighted. What are your thoughts on these two players? Have you looked into these two players? I'm very curious to see what you guys think about these two players. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, I do have a trivia question for you today. And the trivia question for today is, which college did Cedric Howard play for? Was it A, Washington State? Was it B, BYU? Was it C, Portland? Or was it D, Gonzaga? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So that will be it for today's video. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.